A reading from Matthew's Gospel, chapter 1, beginning at verse 18. Now the birth of Jesus Christ took place in this way. When his mother Mary had been betrothed to Joseph, before they came together, she was found to be with child from the Holy Spirit. And her husband Joseph, being a just man and unwilling to put her to shame, resolved to divorce her quietly. But as he considered these things, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream, saying, Joseph, son of Mary, do not fear to take Mary as your wife, for that which is conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. She will bear a son, and you shall call his name Jesus, for he will save his people from their sins. All this took place to fulfill what the Lord had spoken by the prophets. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and they shall call his name Immanuel, which means God with us. When Joseph woke from sleep, he did as the angel of the Lord commanded him. He took his wife, but knew her not until she had given birth to a son, and he called his name Jesus. This passage deals with the virgin birth, and it's fair to say that the virgin birth is something which has caused no end of controversy over the years. And there are many within the church who would say, well, let's just put that whole thing to one side. Let's get rid of the virgin birth because it's an embarrassment in this modern day and age. But that's to ignore that it would have been an embarrassment back in Jesus' day too. Yes, we have ultrasound. Yes, we understand how these things work. But people in the ancient world understood that it takes certain things to produce a child. They weren't naive. They knew that virgin births don't occur. So it's no more embarrassing or outlandish now than it was back then. But the fact of the matter is that the virgin birth plays an important part in our understanding of Jesus, in our understanding of the gospel. And it's simply this, that the virgin birth demonstrates to us Jesus' divinity. It says that he is something other. He's fully human. He's born of Mary. Yes, his flesh comes from her. He's as human as you are or as I am. But the virgin birth, that speaks of a supernatural beginning as well. That speaks of a divinity to Christ as well. This, of course, is all reinforced by the prophecy from Isaiah, which was repeated in the passage, about a virgin will conceive, and giving the name of that child as Immanuel. And Immanuel simply means God with us. And so Isaiah, centuries before, sets up for us the virgin birth of Christ, something which would attract attention, something which would cause you to scratch your heads, something that would teach you something important about who Jesus is. It's, in other words, a foundational part of our understanding of the faith. And what it says to us is that Jesus is fully man, but he's fully God. It shows us that as we see Jesus working great miracles, it's not because he's some kind of trickster or hoaxer or some sort of magician, but rather because he is divine. Jesus, he is an inbreaking of the divine upon earth. And when we see Jesus teaching, we understand that the words that he speaks have behind them a divine authority. And that as we see Jesus die and then rise from the dead, we understand that his divinity, the life that was within him, brought him back from that death. The virgin birth then sits as a bookend. We have the crucifixion and resurrection at one end, but we have the virgin birth at the other. So we would be foolish simply to abandon the doctrine because we think it's embarrassing. Let's be frank. The very idea that God could take human form, the very idea that God could take human flesh and dwell amongst us, that's embarrassing. The very idea that Jesus could rise from the dead, that's embarrassing. There are a number of things about Jesus which might be embarrassing to us in the wider, modern, more rational, materialistic world. But it doesn't mean they're not true. They were there to grab the attention, and they were there to tell us something important about quite who it is who was born at Bethlehem.